Hey there, game makers, and welcome to the first of making an inventory system Nioh style. So basically infinite doom scrolling, scaling downwards to more and more entries. So what does that mean? Well, we just have for now, later on we will expand, of course, just entries. We just click on them and then bam, we are adding them to our inventory system. Then it goes down and so on. There are more ways how to do that, or different ways. So for example, here, this is Nioh style based on the category. So for example, on the weapon or a specific armor type. And then you got your entries, and then you can doom scroll because Nioh has bazillions of unique items, and therefore you have the hassle of sorting or selling or transmogrifying and God knows what with those entries. There is the semi-fixed way. So for example, this game here. Then let's mark this with those thick lines here, and then you got those slots, and then you got slot 0 to slot, I don't know, 68 or whatever that one is, and then you have multiples. So for example, here this is then more useful for resources. When you gather them, then you have like 18 of the blue crystal here, and the Spiegelei, the egg here, I don't know, 2 or 3. So this is a different system, but of course it's fixed to the slots which you're having, and then of course you can pick one and then drag it to the other side and rearrange it. So here you got limited space, and therefore managing your inventory is more of a hassle. And then the last one, which is then super fixed. This one is the most easy one in my opinion, because you got fixed positions. So basically you have the item or not, and then it's being displayed or not, and that's pretty much it. You cannot have more items, you cannot have less, you just have a very fixed amount. And then after you find your, what is it, 5 per slot, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 items in total. So if you collected your 25 items, you cannot find anything more. That's it. This game is really rigorous and fixed, and then that's pretty much it. Of course, this is making it much more easy for the GUI manager and so on, that you don't have to have an actual inventory system, because it's just saying like, hey, do I have the red, whatever that is, pearl or not? Or for example, do I have the sword here or not? And that's pretty much it. Very rigorous, and this is the easiest way how to do inventory systems, where you just say like, hey, it's super fixed. There's no, let's say, you can find or not cannot find, or you cannot have additional ones or modify, or you can, for example, rearrange things. Not happening here. But of course we go this route, which is kind of neat, and therefore we're gonna build it in GameMaker first with a draw event, later on with the draw GUI, and then some modifying stuff, because you will feel the pain with me of making inventory systems, because well, that is the way that goes. So without further ado, for the long rambling, sorry my guys, but if you want to join me on this hopefully not too long journey, well, then stick around. This is One Up Indie. I am a developer, so if you like what you're seeing and hearing, then why not consider sharing, liking, and well, subscribing to the channel, of course. Alrighty, so for a little bit of a housekeeping, because let's make it a little bit more pleasing for the eye, because when you start off with that, not so good. So let's make it more bueno. Let's go to our background and then add a nice little sprite here, which I prepared. I did, right? Yes, of course I did. No, on the background, drag that in here. Sweet. And then vertically we'll repeat it. So you got it here, and make it, well, move a little bit, so it's just nicer as a background. The next thing is we want to have things which we want to pick up for now. This is just like, to make it also as easy as possible. So let's go under our instances and drag a few guys in here, and they are small, too small. Let's make them bigger. So and then place them. So we just have some dummy stuff which we can click on and then add to our stack on our inventory. Here, just for understanding, I have a few sprites. These you can also download. Where can you download them? Here under this link. It will be of course in the project file. You can download that project file for free. All the stuff is for free to be used and abused as usual. So CC3 by One Up Indie. If you use it, you know, would be nice to credit me. If not, oh well. that happens. And then well, you can find all the stuff here under items, and then food, misc, or weapons. We're just going to use our weapons for now, and then, well, randomly choose and just let it pick one of those guys. And then, for example, once we start it, this is what we get, one of those guys, and the randomizer likes bombs. Okay, so that is that thing here. We're not going to use it because well, this is just for us to adding it to our two main guys, which is the inventory and our controller. So first of all, let's place these guys in our room. The controller can be wherever. You can even stretch it if you like, so it looks more menacing. And of course our inventory here, and stretch that guy, and then something like this. You know, this is with tons of magic numbers, and assuming you don't use a well, a camera, which most of you will. So here this will be just, you know, a placeholder for now. Later on we will advance it and make it more obvious and nice. So first of all, we need to draw ourselves. Here we go. And then a magic number just for my side, image X scale, just, you know, because so it stretches correctly. This is a thing which you shouldn't be worrying about too much. So first of all, one thing which we do need, so let's go into the paint guy here. And what do we want? First of all, just imagine we have our inventory system like this. We face plant it into the room, and then it's anchored at the top left. So this is where I did it. Then we need to have a start X and Y position. So here X, I don't know, 20 pixels to the right and 20 pixels down. Cool. So here we can have our first slot, this guy here. And then we say like, hey, cool, we need to have our next slot. So we need to define Y positions, which are going downwards, and then next and next. So here they're also anchored on the top left, and so we just need to have our Y position 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what we want to do, and then later on we will just draw our sword, well, on these, or whatever icon sprite we have attached on these slots. These slots are just, you know, just cosmetic, so it looks nicer. So the first thing is we need our Y positions. Well, what do we want to have for that, or how do we do that? Kind of easy. I just call it slot Y. This is then a relative position. So for example, we just say like, hey, repeat. I'm going to use a few of the repeat loops because repeat is just awesome. It's really easy to use. So we are repeating, I don't know how many times do we want to have that. Let's go for 60, of course. Later on, maybe a few more positions or less, depending how you want to do the doom scrolling part. So let's just do it with 60 ones because, hey, let's throw resources out because we have more than enough. And then we just say like, hey, where should this be? So for example, here we set I and loop that thing, so I++. So this is what I do a lot of times, so you will see the pattern being repeated. So here we're just having I, well, repeated 60 times until it reaches 60, and then, well, we're out of here. And then of course we have then now 60 slot positions for our Y position. So here we just say like, okay, but wait a minute, how big is each position? Well, we can just check out our items. So for example here, 32 by 32, so that should be one position. Of course, make a buffer between those, so let's say 34, and then times I. And that's pretty much it, you know. Now we got all those relative positions, and then we can actually draw them. So let's once again repeat the I loop here, so here, and then draw sprites, no, not text, the regular draw sprite. Later on we will use this one, and then draw this guy. Of course, it's our background thing, also 32 by 32. Copy paste and just face plant it here, and then of course we have X and then Y, which is then top left of our inventory. Here it's top left anchored, and then plus slot I. And then, for example, once we see that, we should have a lot of stuff. I'm not sure why GameMaker is doing that. Maybe some issues with OBS or whatever. So let's try that again, because I had that before. Yeah, and as you can see, it's small, it's super small. This is not good. So let's make them a little bit bigger. Let's define a variable called scale. This will be later on very useful for us for draw GUI, because draw GUI is 1-to-1. And then, well, multiply it also with our scale. And then that we need to take into account also for our Y position. And then, of course, well, make our icons or the background thing here a little bit bigger. Then we need to have, go away. The scale is, as you can see here, we need to fill it out. Rotation, nope. Color, yeah, see white. Alpha 1, and then let's see that again. And it looks definitely much nicer. And of course, we need some padding. For that, we just then define two variables, which I discussed at the very start. So start X is, let's go with 20. And then start Y, let's go with 20, 20, 30, and it doesn't really matter. And just add them to the bunch. So plus here and plus here. And now we will have some nice padding, which we definitely want to have. So this is great. But of course, nothing is happening. We can click on stuff and, well, this is not what we want to have. So therefore, we need to have a mini structure. And in quotations, mini structure, because we need to have items. For that, we will create our first constructor. Because, well, we need to have it. This is kind of the structure of having one item and then assigning it values. So function create item, here we go. And then, no, not you, constructor, here we go. And here, this thing is then each time creating a new entry. This is very important for us. And the only thing which we want to pass in is, I don't know, a sprite for now. And then, for example, for our item, SPR is then getting this dude assigned. So each time we create a new entry, it will demand a sprite which we pass in. And that sprite later on we will draw. So for example, now nothing is happening. So we need kind of a container, and this is where the array will come in. I just call it inventory array. You know, not very original from my side, but let's do it like this. And in this dude, we are holding all our entries, which is great. So here, that's what that thing is doing. And depending of the length of that dude, so depending on how many entries we're having, we are drawing as many of these guys here. So we just say var length, maybe G in between, yeah, something like this, array length. And of course, this is not inside our inventory, it's inside our controller. So we just say dot, and then depending how many entries we are having, we are drawing as many of those entries. Of course, at some point, it's maybe a little bit too much. As you can see, nothing is being drawn because we have no entry right now. So how can we actually add one entry? Well, let's make a little mini function on our controller to, on mouse click, to add one. So for example, here, I will just copy paste that because I don't want to bore you guys too much with that. So let's say we're just checking like, hey, have we pressed our mouse button? If yes, well, then we actually add an entry. So here we do this. Have we pressed our left mouse button? Yes. So what do we do? Well, we are just checking for a collision. This is just for us, for demonstrating and seeing like, hey, this pickup item, so this dude here, are we, well, with our mouse clicking and hovering over one, then what do? Well, we're just checking like, hey, phi now if that instance is not no one. So basically we are grabbing an instance. If yes, that's good. And then we well, destroy it. Instance destroy. Here we go. So we don't have it duplicated multiple times and just, you know, making problems. And of course we want to add, and for that we just create a little script which are called add item. And here we need to pass in let's make this a little bit here mysterious, not too much of course. First of all, if we want to add a new item, we want to come on, let's do it like this. F1, open it to the right side. So what do we want to have? So first of all, we need kind of the, well, how it looks like. So from the instance, the sprite, come on, index, here we go. We just grab that one. So here, this little entry. And what do we do with it? Well, we just take this one and add it to our create a new entry, and then put that which we took out from the instance which we hovered over, and just import it here and then save it as item SPR. So basically we just say like, hey, that's good. We create a new entry point. Oh, come on. We say like, hey, on a specific point which we haven't defined is new create item. So this is the very important keyword. So here we are creating a new entry, and of course we need, well, our SPR because it's a demanding one. Boom, fill it in. And of course we need to say like, but what kind of index do we want to have here? What do we need to set in? Well, it's kind of easy. We just once again need to check the array length. So as you can see, recycling code is a good idea. Why is that? Because our length at the very beginning of our array is 0. So the 0 will be passed in here. And then later on, once we picked one up, the length is 1. And then of course, if it's 1, cool. Then the next array slot position is 1, and so on. So this is how we can, you know, recycle our code and make it, well, as easy as possible. But for now, we would be just destroying. So let's check it out. Now, for example, we're clicking on one dude and should be gone and gone and gone and gone. And as you can see, these entries are being already in there because, well, the array is growing. But for now, we just, well, drawing backgrounds, which is not too exciting, to be honest. So we say like, hey, we need to get it. var get sprite, and then we just say like, hey, from that object array on the position of I, because this has the same length here and here, we need to grab what? Well, this dude here. So here we just add it, and now we are grabbing from the array on this specific index position of I. So at the beginning it's 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're grabbing the sprite which we passed in on our add item script. So hopefully you can follow me on this one. What did I do here? Come on, like this. And then we just need to draw it. So we just copy and paste that line, but instead of GUI slot, we just do this, and let's see if it works. Hopefully I didn't mess up too much. Yes, 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 yes. And that's pretty much it, how you can, you know, create a mini inventory system and use arrays and of course constructors to create new entry points, and then you can just stack them. For now, this should be more than enough because the video is 20 minutes. Wow, see, this is way too long. But just to recapitulate, to make it as easy as possible, so we have our things, we click on them, we grab the sprite index, so how it looks like, pass that into our new entry position, which is part of the entry of the data structure which we're having, so the array, and in the array we store a new struct, and the struct is, well, basically is created by the constructor. So here, here, so basically here in this array, in each, well, position here, so basically this index position here, each time we are creating and storing one new constructed struct, and this struct has, well, specific parameters. For now it's just having this little variable item SPR, and this allows us to draw it on the screen. Hopefully not too difficult, and if this is getting a little bit too too difficult, no problem. The project file will be on my Discord. You can just check it out, see what's actually going on. I will document it a little bit more so you can see how that goes, and then later on we will expand how to toggle through positions and what we can do additionally, and later on we can kind of swap and manipulate the way how we set up our whole item system, because for now it's just like a clean item, but later on, to make a real full-fledged inventory system, which is definitely more complex and more open for you, we need to have templates, and these templates are gonna get copied into the item system. This is where we'll lose 99%, but this system is then that flexible, well, that you can create your own mini Skyrim systems or if you like. So this is the way to go there. In quotations, mini Skyrim. Skyrim is a little bit more complicated, but hopefully you get my gist here. Alrighty, then without further ado, see you in the next one. Have a good one. One up indie.